Let's talk behavior change. We all know it's really important, and we all know that it's really, really difficult. And here's the thing. It's not because we don't have good intentions. I mean, we've got gobs of good intentions, right? It's because those good intentions so often don't see the light of day. Now, fortunately, we can learn a lot from a couple of well-known icons. There's Homer's epic hero, Odysseus. And then there's America's epic hero, Kim Kardashian. Stick with me. So we all know the story of Odysseus and the Song of the Sirens, right? The sirens were awful creatures. Yes, they sang beautiful songs, but they did it to draw sailors closer and closer to their island. The ships would crash on the rocks, they'd sink, and everybody on board would die. Now, when faced with this temptation, did Odysseus count on his renowned grit and his superior willpower? No. Instead, he admitted his good intentions were not enough to keep him from falling prey to the siren's song. So instead, he told his men to tie him to the mast, to put beeswax in their ears, and to keep on rowing. And that allowed Odysseus to hear the siren's song and live to tell the tale. And Kim Kardashian? Well, she knows that successful dieting takes a lot more than just good intentions. And she uses a strategy that's a lot like that of Odysseus. According to Ryan Seacrest, she orders whatever she wants for dinner. Let's say it's a hamburger and a side of fries. She polishes off the hamburger immediately. And then she digs into the fries. And she gets to a point, and we all know this point. She gets to the point where she knows she shouldn't eat another bite. And it's at that point that she pulls out a bottle of window cleaner and sprays it all over the remaining fries. I know. Now, I know that spraying what's basically poison on your food is crazy, in this case with a capital K. But I think Kardashian and Odysseus are onto something really important about behavior change. You see, they know that their good intentions are not enough to get the job done. They know that their future selves are all too likely to let those good intentions slip away in the face of temptation. And they know that they need to re-engineer their situation if their intentions are going to show up in their actions. So here's the thing. Bad behaviors are not the result of bad intentions on which we act. All too often, bad behaviors are the result of good intentions on which we don't act. In other words, our intentions and our actions all too often don't go hand in hand. Now think about it. Think about the last time you were annoyed with a coworker, or you had a fight with your spouse, or maybe you were mad at yourself for engaging in some self-defeating behavior. Think back to the behavior that really steamed you. And was it really an intentional act of ill will? Or is there something more basic and primitive going on? And that is the question that's at the heart of the matter. I mean, why is it that we find it so hard to do the right thing? I believe the answer is found in a pair of startling statistics. The non-conscious part of your brain runs at an astounding 10 million bits of information each and every second. That's the same amount of data as is in a weekday edition of the New York Times. Your brain is devouring the equivalent of a New York Times each and every second. But the conscious part of your brain, the part that we think of as our minds, the part that is hopefully listening to me but maybe thinking about your next meal, that part of your brain runs at a pokey 50 bits. Right. So let's stop for a minute and try to wrap our measly 50 bits around how measly 50 bits really is. If the non-conscious throughput of your brain, the processing capacity, is represented by a cup of sugar, then the conscious processing capacity of your brain is only 1 or 2 grains. Now, I know what some of you are probably thinking. You're asking, is there some way to improve that conscious throughput? After all, we've been told if we do more Sudoku puzzles, or we do crossword puzzles, Or even if we expose our unborn children to classical music, that we can strengthen our brains and strengthen their brains. Well, maybe, but here's the bad news. Our brains were adapted for a time long ago in a place really far away. It was an environment that was poor in calories and rich in risks, and nature advantaged brains that operated quickly and almost effortlessly. So our brains are the result of millions of years of evolution, and that means it's really, really difficult and really unlikely that anything we do is going to change the way they work. In other words, we're stuck with our 50 bits. And instead of chasing after more bits, we need to just get comfortable with this limitation as part and parcel of our daily lives. If we're going to improve our behaviors, we're going to have to trick our brains and ourselves into it. And to do that, we need a couple of powerful mind hacks. So here they are. Here's the first mind hack. Make the right thing really, really easy. And if possible, make it automatic. Take toothbrushing, right? We all know we're supposed to brush our teeth. We've known it since we were kids. Actually, humans have known it for thousands of years. But it wasn't until the early 20th century with the introduction of Pepsodent that this important health behavior really took off. Now, why the shift? Well, unlike competing formulations, Pepsodent had a secret ingredient: mint. And when you brushed your teeth, for the first time ever, your mouth felt cool and tingly and clean. And preventing cavities, that was just a side effect of doing something that felt good in the here and now. Contraception uses this same strategy. Long-acting reversible methods, things like IUDs and implantable hormones, they are at least 20 times more effective than other methods. Why? Because once they're in place, they protect women from unintended pregnancies automatically. Now, obviously, we can't make the right thing automatic all the time. And when that's the case, we need the second mind hack, and that's to make the wrong thing really, really difficult, or as difficult as we can. Let's face it, we have got an eating problem. We eat too much and we eat the wrong stuff. Now, where our brains grew up, this was actually a feature, not a flaw. After all, in an environment where there aren't very many calories, it makes a lot of sense to grab and eat as many of them as you can whenever you can. But guess what? Times have changed. You know, eating now, all you have to do at work is you reach across your desk to that candy dish, right? Or at home, you reach across the dinner table to the bowl of mashed potatoes. But the fix is probably easier than we think. Simply by putting these tempting things out of sight and out of reach, we can enjoy substantially better outcomes. So for example, changing that clear candy dish on your desk at work to an opaque one and moving it 6 feet away, that cuts consumption by more than 50%. And if you take those tempting carbs and move them from the table to the counter, that cuts consumption by 19%. But my favorite example of stopping people in their tracks when they're about to make the wrong choice is PetSmart Charities. PetSmart Charities is a not-for-profit organization whose mission is to help save homeless pets. Now, this charity doesn't inundate people with information about why it's so important to donate. They don't shower people with swag when they make a contribution. Instead, they grab people's 50 bits long enough to ask them to make a conscious choice between donating or not donating. And they make not donating a little bit shameful. So here's how it works. You're at the line at PetSmart. It's time to check out. There's a question that appears on the screen. They ask, do you want to donate to help save homeless pets? And below the question are a series of buttons with suggested contribution amounts, $1, $2, $5, $10. And below that is a gigantic red no thanks button that everybody behind you in line can see when you push. Well, what happens? People donate, right? So in the recent recession from 2007 to 2011, individual contributions nationwide for all charities on average were down 3%. But PetSmart Charities during that same period, their contributions were up more than 80%. These two strategies, these two hacks, are really powerful because they help us get around our 50 bits limitation and activate the good intentions that we all have. And that's a powerful force, a force that can be wielded for good. Many hotels now ask their guests, look, if you want to reuse your towels, hang it on the towel rack, right? And if you want a fresh towel, put your used towel on the floor. It's a great idea. But it would be better if they, didn't use gravity to help the wrong choice, right? It should be a little more difficult to request a new towel than dropping something on the floor. Better that they have a bin outside of the bathroom with a lid on it that you have to put the used towel in. And here's the thing, and maybe this is the biggest thing. Nature's limitations, that 50 bits limitation, means there is a persistent and sizable gap between our intentions and our actions. And all too often, we ignore this intent-behavior gap, especially for people with whom we disagree. We observe a bad behavior, and we attribute it to an evil motive. That is not true for us, and we shouldn't expect it to be true for others. We need to do better. We need to break a sweat trying to understand how someone who's reasonable and well-meaning might wind up engaging in a bad behavior. It's a difficult exercise, but I promise when we do it, we'll be surprised at what we learn. Behavior is mission critical for the human endeavor, and it's high time that we embrace the limitations that nature has imposed on us and use these strategies to activate the good intentions that are in all of us. Thank you.